Hi friends, host Eric here, host talking to famous people, and today I'm live streaming the provocative topic of sexual jealousy and cognitive functions. You may have noticed my provocative thumbnail that I also made to encourage viewership. It shows a gentleman and a lady lying together in a fashion that suggests they're feeling jealous. I want to show it to Kim. Isn't that a good thumbnail, Kim?
Yeah.
Yeah. It does. It looks. I look just like that guy. And you are a spitting image for homegirl there. So I'm live streaming today on the main channel. I'm not actually live streaming right now from the Raw channel because for some reason the bot's not in here. I'm not the tech person around here, so I don't really know what's going on. But I'm sure they'll fix it at some point. Susie will fix it, or somebody will fix it. Anywho, I am live streaming on the main channel though. And I think this topic is very interesting because I relate to it personally. I experience sexual jealousy, and I don't really have a good reason for experiencing sexual jealousy at all. In fact, I don't have really any reason for experiencing sexual jealousy, but I do anyway. And so it's become a matter of curiosity to me and something of a subject of study here. Kimberly read to me when I was driving the other day something she found on the internet as I was trying to figure it out. And I start with the most interesting thing that I took away from what she read, which is, first of all, there are two kinds of sexual jealousy. One is sexual jealousy about emotional connectivity, and the other is sexual jealousy about physical connectivity. And you probably don't have both. I don't have sexual jealousy about emotional connectivity. I have confidence and faith in my ability to emotionally connect with Kimberly, and or I don't get what emotional connection is very well, so I don't worry about competing at that. I'm not sure which of those two it is, but I don't feel any threat that Kimberly felt closer to somebody else in the past emotionally, or that was a better match for Kimberly emotionally in the past. I do feel as though it's very likely somebody in the past was a better fit sexually, physically. So I experienced that kind of emotion, that kind of sexual jealousy, and not the other kind. If you experience the other kind, emotional sexual jealousy, then you're probably an INTP or an ISTP. Why? Because then FI is your insecurity function. What's my insecurity function? SE. What's SE? The first two letters of sex. So it's worth noting then that depending on which kind of jealousy you have, you're going to deal with it in different ways. So the thing about this cognitive function idea, though, is everybody is susceptible to sexual jealousy as far as I can tell. I don't think there's any type that isn't susceptible to it, although I could be wrong about that. If there were to be a type that was not susceptible to it, I don't know. It doesn't make any sense that there would be really. The thing about sexual jealousy, additionally, that we have to do before we start getting into the cognitive function aspect of it, is recognizing the biological aspect of it. There is undeniably a quality sexual jealousy that is part of being an animal. So if you're a mammal and you have and you're a male, you want to lock down a mate. And you want that mate to be exclusive to you because you want to make sure that mate reproduces your genes and not your competition's genes. So I think it's true for almost every species that the male tries to fight off other males and you know, prevent his woman from having other dudes get on her. I don't know if the same thing's true with chicks in various species, but it certainly is true in our species. The chicks have an equivalent feeling of sexual jealousy that is um, basically the same as men's. I think women are probably more likely to feel insecure about their bodies. There seems to be a lot of stuff on the internet about that, which is not what I'm looking at, right? Because I don't feel insecure about my body. I don't feel insecure about like I feel my insecurities have to do with not getting the standard by which these things are judged. So if I'm going to be feeling insecure about sex, it's going to be because I'm comparing myself against some sort of abstract standard that I have in my head of what women want, what men are supposed to do, whatever. And comparing myself against some 22-year-old ideal version of myself. Realistically, for a 46-year-old, I'm remarkably virile and active in that regard. So if I want to compare myself, I should compare myself against that standard, not against some ideal standard in my head. But really, I shouldn't compare myself at all because it's not useful in any regard. So sexual jealousy then is going to link in a lot with your insecurity function. If you're an INTP, as I indicated, or an ISTP, you're likely to be experiencing the kind of sexual jealousy that has to do with emotional connectivity. You're worried that your partner was more emotionally connected to some previous partner than he or she is to you. If you're an ENTP or an ENFP, then likely your sexual jealousy is going to be of the comparative physical kind. You're saying, I'm concerned that my partner had a better physical connection with somebody in the past than they have with me. Regardless, whatever happened in your partner's life before they get with you is it's not anything you get to be jealous about. That's all there is to it. You just don't get to be jealous about that stuff. If the person was not in a committed relationship with you, then they didn't cheat on you. They didn't do anything they weren't supposed to do, and their life experience is responsible for them being the person that they are now. So the reason Kimberly is the person that I now love is because of all of the stuff that comprises her life before meeting me, including stuff that involved other men. It's unavoidably so that a human being in the world who's a normal sexually active human being, and this is going to be true for chicks especially because they have a lot easier time um, attaining their sexual selves than do men. Um, her life is going to have be comprised of stuff she did with other men because she was married for a while. So when she says like, "Oh, I went there," she's talking about going there with her ex-husband. Maybe she was then not married but actively dating for a while, more actively sometimes, less actively sometimes, but trying to find a relationship that worked for her. In the process of doing that, she ended up being in a fair number of sort of short-term, couple weeks, couple months relationships. Um, and so when she references things from her past, there's a decent chance that this thing that she's referencing, like, oh yeah, I went there one time and had a good time or whatever, that she probably was with some other man. But that has nothing to do with me at all, except insofar as it's responsible for her becoming the woman that she is now. And that is somebody that I find infinitely precious. So to the extent that I want to indulge in jealousy about shit that has absolutely nothing to do with me, and is from the past, then what I'm choosing to do render is ignore the fact that I've arrived where I'm supposed to be. It's like I'm still doing at that point journey stuff, like making sure we're going where we're supposed to be going and getting where we're supposed to be getting and yada yada yada. But the journey's over. I'm already there. I've reached the destination. There's no possible good to be done from continuing to protect against highway brigands or something. If we're not on the highway anymore, there are no more brigands to be concerned about. Now, obviously, one engages in some basic safety protocols, like, lock the door when you leave the house kind of thing. Like, obviously, if your woman says, "Oh, I'm going to hang out with Joe and Fred this weekend. We're going down to San Diego together. Don't worry, they're just friends." Then you go, are you ready for a huge fight now? But that's not the case with Kimberly at all. I mean, she understands she understands the relationship the same way that I do. That you avoid even the appearance of impropriety. That you always err on the side of that which is cautious regarding your fidelity, and that which affirms and reassures that principle of fidelity, rather than trying to live on the margins. So, in that regard, I have absolutely no cause for actual sexual jealousy in the status quo. It's not like I have any logical reason to be concerned that she would ever cheat on me or do anything like that. It's a completely irrational emotional response for me, and one that I don't quite know what to do with, except, I try to, like, solve it by words, like, well, okay, did you feel like this? Did you say this? Or what? Who fucking cares? It doesn't matter at all. It doesn't matter what Kimberly's experience with those people were prior to being with me, because, except to the extent that I'm bringing them up, she's not thinking about them. She's thinking about me. Why? Well, first of all, I'm like 1,000 times cooler than anybody she's ever been with. I don't have any concern about that. I don't worry about competing against these guys, because I have a fundamental arrogance about me that just says, Eric, it took me a long time to get here. I want to reassure you of that. I've spent most of my life hating myself. But I'm able to step back now and realistically go, none of those previous guys could possibly compete with you, Eric. If you sit down with them and in any way, shape, or form try to compete for Kim, you'd blow them out of the water. Nobody's going to come in here. Nobody's going to roll up on me and dominate, right? There's zero chance of that happening. So what am I worried about? What am I concerned about at all? I have nothing to be concerned about. The thing is, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you want to believe that there's something you should feel bad about, you'll find something to feel bad about. And it'll fall into the category of thing that you're insecure about. Now, what's a curious question is whether or not I get how Fi and Se in the 7th or 8th slot link directly to sexual jealousy. It's less clear to me how other functions in the 7th or 8th slot link to sexual jealousy, or if they do. So, Kestrel, for example, has Si in the 8th slot. That's his insecurity function. So does that mean he feels insecure about how his body feels good during sex? Let's ask him.
No.
So yeah, maybe SI doesn't work that way. Who knows? But for example, if you were FE in the 8th slot, like an ESTJ or something, then presumably you'd be insecure about whether or not your partner is pleased. So like if you have SE, you might be insecure about your performance. If you have FE, you might be insecure about your performance in terms of not because you don't think you're a stud or something, but because you don't think she thinks. You don't think that she's pleased. If you have TE in the 8th slot, Maybe you're concerned about your mechanics. You think you did it inefficiently. If you have TI in the eighth slot, you're probably concerned about how illogical your sex is. And if you have if you have NI in the eighth slot, then you're pretty sure you failed to attain the single right path. And if you have NE in the eighth slot, you probably think you're boring and just keep doing the same things over and over again. Kestrel?
I will say this. Sense introversion is my insecurity. But it doesn't, if I've got to the point where I'm having sex, I'm pretty much in flow because, you know, the FE is operating on full effect. But anything prior to that state, it causes serious SI insecurities. And I've always had it. It's like going back to high school, I would just be like, I would be hypersensitive that like some fucking snot is going to come out my nose, you know, or something like that. But not in a way that I'm able to control it.
Right, right. You're like, oh, I'm going to fart.
Do you know what I mean? It's like,
I'm going to fart, and it's going to ruin the mood.
yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So, I'd be curious to hear from anybody in the chat or anybody who wants to join us here in TWFP2 who has a 8-slot function other than FI or SE, which I feel like I kind of get pretty well. It was interesting to hear what Kessler just had to say about SI, but anybody who's got any function, especially other than FI or SE in the 8th slot, I'd love to hear if you want to share with us how that expresses for you as sexual insecurity. And I think sexual insecurity is the expression of sexual jealousy, basically. So it's like having sexual jealousy is this raw material feeling, and then it expresses through your insecurity. I like wonder about like, well, who's that guy on your Facebook list of friends? Yeah, I do, but it's not because I think. Well, like I said, it's not because I think she was. Do you have an emotional connection to that guy? It's not something I don't think I've ever asked you.
No, but you do ask me, did you sleep with him?
Yeah, I do ask you that. Well, did you sleep with him? Well, did you blow him? Hand job? Did you tickle his scrotum?
Did you toss a salad?
I will ask you that one. I want to know. So, the thing about sexual jealousy is, of course, if it's justified, in other words, if your partner is actually shady in some regard, well, then you probably need to leave that relationship ASAP. But most of the time, I suspect, when people talk about sexual jealousy being a problem, it's because it's unjustified. Certainly that's the case in my situation. Kim does a much better job of constraining herself in terms of sexual jealousy than I do, or has historically, but she expresses it sometimes too. And I realize when she does that it is kind of annoying. Of course, I tend to counter by getting jealous back, which tends to put a stop to her jealousy because, you know, it's more of a problem for me. So she's like, well, fuck it. I don't want to indulge in sexual jealousy if it's going to start him off on it because I hate it. So, and that's what it is. It's indulging in something. You're indulging in
You're indulging in a behavior that affects your current.
Right. You're defining your status quo now experience as one that prioritizes self-generated metaphysical objects, statuses and stuff, over any opportunity to experience life in the moment by rendering life in the moment entirely about those self-generated metaphysical objects, even though they're negative on multiple levels. So my effort currently is to deconstruct sexual jealousy, which is how I approach any sort of problem like this. It's for me to get over something that's an FI related thing means I have to go full blast TI on it and say, all right, well, what the fuck is this feeling? What are you supposed to do with it? How do you deal with it? Where does it come from? Why does it exist? How can we taxonomy it? All those kind of questions are ways that I deal with the horrible cancer of emotion. Yes, that's right. Each of us is subjected to a horrible cancer called our feelings. And to get rid of them, we have to use TI. Go ahead.
I'd have to assume that what I actually at the moment presuppose about everything is that it's comfort seeking, and then obviously it's insecurity. It's part of broader insecurity, and it's a sexual insecurity is just an expression of the insecurity that's already there. So that would be like status anxiety. So some a judgment of self first and foremost before it's the judgment of how your partner relates to other people.
That's true. It is for sure a judgment of self first, and it's I think that self-criticism, objective self-criticism, and to a certain extent self-hatred, they are defense mechanisms that allow you to claim some solid ground in an area where you don't feel strong. So it's like, I may not be
You're
good
breaking
at
up.
it.
I'll restart.
I'll refresh. Yes. So, what was I just saying? What was I saying though? Do you remember?
The it being a judgment of self, and you were talking about self-hatred being a ground.
It's a defense mechanism because you may not be good at something, but at least you're assessing yourself accurately. And if you own not being good at it, then that enables you to dismiss its significance in some fashion and not have to internalize what you view as a failure to yourself. So, but rather, it's sort of like distances you from it in the sense that you no longer have to expect yourself to be good at it, and you get to stop competing at that thing.
Well, if you had acceptance, that wouldn't sound to me to be part of the hatred, because the hatred would be more of an unreasonable expectation on yourself that you're continually not meeting.
Well, but I think that the hatred part comes in boxing yourself in that fashion. Like, I accept the constraints of this box, that I'm not good at this, and that for me to be an okay person requires me to apply effort towards this. And I'm trying to hold myself accountable. But the thing is, you're not really holding yourself accountable. What you're really doing is saying, fine, I won't fight framework on this. I will only fight under your framework on the contention level. And you're basically ignoring your responsibility to make the right arguments in favor of making the safer arguments. Of course, I tend to view everything in terms of argumentation, but most other people probably don't view things like sexual insecurity as a form of argumentation. I don't really see it as anything but that. For me, it certainly manifests as argumentation. It's like I actually make the arguments with Kimberly. No, you said this, which means this bad thing about me. Now, we have to accept that as fact then. This is a bad thing about me, and we have to do deductive work from that. What does this further mean, and what should I do to fix the problem? Blah, 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 blah. Well, the problem is, Eric, you're choosing to frame it out in the way that is most critical of yourself, unnecessarily, and not in keeping with what Kim actually means at all. So, Kestrel?
Yeah, that's just projecting your insecurities, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. For sure. But the question is why? No, it's not. It's not something that
comes down to that.
Go ahead.
That thing we were talking about about the judgmentalism and playing God in the 12-step terms, and the individual growing up as a person, as something with agency that gets acted upon and determines the external person or situation as the determinant of one's internal emotional state, and it's still a remaining confusion from that period.
Okay, so I'm looking at the live chat here. Matthew Alster says, sorry, I have FINA. Do you feel that you, Matthew, if you're still watching, do you feel that you, to the extent you experience sexual jealousy, it's about emotional connectivity rather than physical connectivity? That's my question to you. Also to you, Andrew. He says, I'm an INTP. It never works out for me with other N types. I always end up dating dumb, parentheses, but in a cute way, S types. It's simpler with them and particle. So, do you feel that if you're going to feel insecure, that it would be about emotional connectivity rather than physical connectivity, or does that not apply in your case? I have to go back and look to see what he said.
Isn't it more about sort of personal connectivity with yourself?
Practical, he says. Andrew says practical. Practical connectivity, like if you have enough practical use for them. Like, do you bring enough concrete selling points to the table?
That's sort of just circling back to the insecurity, isn't it? It's like, oh, am I doing this right? Am I doing that right?
Well, you're right, but what I'm saying is there are different kinds of insecurity, and being insecure about your physical connectivity with another person is different than being insecure about your emotional connectivity with another person. And then this guy just said, Andrew said, it was practical. So I was trying to get a sense of, would that be like, oh, I'm fine with the physical connectivity, I'm fine with the emotional connectivity, but I just think I might not be bringing enough practical benefits to the relationship. I'm not making enough money. I don't have this to offer. I don't have that to offer. Maybe that's what he means. I don't know. I'll go back and see if it's clarified.
I'm really sort of set on the idea that, and I've got some historical evidence, personal anecdotal evidence that supports the idea that in a relationship, you should be all right. Call me crazy. You should be all right in it or not in it. You know, and the moving towards it and the getting involved with it should be something more along the lines of, you know, to be attracted to the positives rather than to fill in one's own deficiencies.
Okay,
And
well, I
and
agree
to
with the
cover
latter.
up
I agree with the
sadness.
latter bit of it, what you just said there. That's for sure the case. But the first part, I disagree with entirely. I don't think that a healthy relationship is one in which both parties would be okay without the other one, which is basically what you're saying. I don't find that to be true at all. I don't think either Kim or I would be okay without the other one at this point. I think we're entirely attached to one another, and that's how it should be.
I'm confused.
Well, he said two different things there. The second thing you agreed with, Kim, and I agree with as well. Can you repeat the second part, Kessler? Do you remember what you said?
Well, just that you shouldn't be moving towards a relationship in order to, you know, fill in your own deficiencies or cover up your sadnesses and what have you.
You shouldn't enter into a relationship.
For that purpose? I mean, I guess I agree, but it kind of doesn't matter what purpose you enter into a relationship if you actually are with the right person. Those things will all fix themselves. Like it I mean, it's true that could lead, those reasons could lead you to the wrong relationship, could lead you to commit to the wrong relationship because you want something rather than nothing. That's absolutely the case. However, if those same motivations lead you to a relationship that turns out to be the right person, then it doesn't really matter, in my opinion, because that relationship will heal you. It'll fix the things about you that are fucked up. It won't allow your fucked upness to persist. Like Kim didn't play along with any of my. Now remember, we're pretending about this because Eric's sensitive or something. It was impossible to get her to play along with any of that about anything in life, not just physical stuff, but anything. My bullshit just didn't fly. It hasn't flown. It has not flown since day one. And I just have to actually deal with shit. And it's not like she's not letting it fly by schooling me or anything. She understands me first through a frame of authenticity that I don't quite get how she's doing it, but in some sense, it doesn't matter the content of what I'm saying. It matters the authenticity of the intention, and she's really good at putting it back to that frame. And she's right, of course. It's difficult for me to always know what my intentions are because I don't know where I'm going with something usually. But if there's an emotional motivation behind it, that's not a positive emotional motivation, then she'll cue in on that, and I won't be able to get any further really with it. I'll sort of just, yeah.
But just naturally.
Okay.
It's a natural occurrence.
Right. It's the natural reality of duality manifesting itself in these ways that fix problems, heal people. Like, the thing is, stuff I'm insecure about, she ignores. So her ignoring function is SE. She genuinely doesn't understand on some level how or why I would feel insecure at all, which is a security enforcing reality. So then, and also my expressions of insecurity, they don't trigger the kind of pandering that would reinforce them. They trigger the opposite.
Okay. Well, I mean, all right. I guess that you know, it's not reasonable to suggest that any two people are going to go into a relationship as perfect people, and they're all going to benefit, of course. But I think that there is you know, a danger of codependency. But like what you're talking about is so really what you're talking about, what we're talking about here is not what causes we're talking about does Eric have sexual jealousy?
Yeah, well, and this is the thing. As an SI user, no matter what my ideation is, it's going to originate from personal experience and a subjective epistemology. So, whereas you understand the world as the world first, and Kestrel's perspective being something that reveals about the world rather than defines the expression of the world, I'm the opposite way. And I do link everything back to my own personal experience of things, especially with cognitive functions, because cognitive function to me means it's a taxonomical metaphysical process, and to engage in it correctly or entirely, I guess, to engage in it entirely, not correctly, but entirely, one can only really engage in it about oneself. Now, if it weren't for me, if this thing weren't linked to me personally, and I didn't have this relationship with the concepts, then it probably wouldn't be interesting enough to talk about for me. But that's maybe part of what makes me limited in my ability to like win this YouTube thing or whatever, is because I am a subjectivist epistemologically.
I think that getting down to the nuts and bolts of why Eric is experiencing sexual insecurity is going to be difficult in a scenario like this.
Well, it makes sense that you would find that to be a difficult scenario in which to attain self-change, because unlike me, you actualize internally. I actualize externally. NEDOMs do, ENFP and ENTP. We refine ourselves externally against the feedback of others, which is why we seek so much, well, that's part of why the ENTP seeks so much affirmation. It's a necessary part of my process of self-development that it be public and that others view it. And so, for me, this is actually where and how I deal with shit. I deal with it in front of everybody.
I just sort of being aware of the duality of things. I find it difficult to lend such credence to an overbearing expression of open externalism. I think that you might be discounting some of the unconscious defense mechanisms which you would naturally put up in order to present a self to the outside world. And in such a scenario, you wouldn't be able to confront those unconscious manifestations unless you were on your own.
Well, I mean, again, that's because you're a knower first. You know first. I act first. My knowledge function is seeking. I seek SI because even in my subjective epistemology, my knowing quality is weak.
But sometimes I have to act first. I have to act first in some situations.
Well, I know. Sometimes I have to know first, right? But what I'm telling you is it's a mistake to assume that I'm undervaluing those elements of actualization that are entirely internal. There's obviously some manner of that. And it's also true, however, that I don't really feel as though an understanding of self has been rendered as final until I've talked about it publicly. I can't explain entirely why I feel that way, but I definitely do. And I would definitely say that it's difficult probably for either of us to understand intuitively the actualization process of the other, because I'm an actor first and you're an epistemologist first, and we're both metaphysical. You take the metaphysical perspective of knowing how the world is. I take the metaphysical perspective of defining the world how I want it to be. And it's hard for us each to understand the actualization process of the other on a gut intuitive level.
But like I say, you're speaking in absolutes there when we've both got the ability to,
I don't think I spoke in too many absolutes there. I think the things I said are by and large correct to the extent that any approximation in language can be correct. I think I expressed it well.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this: do you think you have any unconscious defense mechanisms?
Sure. I mean, I don't know by definition, if they're truly unconscious, I don't know what they are, but I allow for the possibility that certainly I have them. I can think of examples of defense mechanisms that used to be unconscious that no longer are. I mean, obviously, if I have unconscious defense mechanisms in the status quo, I don't know what they are, or they're not unconscious.
Okay, I think I get it.
So, anyway, I find the topic fascinating, and it's fascinating to me not only from a personal perspective, but I love it when something happens like happened yesterday when Kimberly read that thing where I go, oh, there are two types of it. I see this as a clear division. And then all of a sudden this cascading set of ideation happens where it's like, oh, well, this links to cognitive functions really well, blah, 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 blah. Those are exciting moments for me as a metaphysical actor, independent of my own personal experience. So the linkage to my personal experience is significant and necessary and a precondition of me really wanting to talk about something. But the ideas themselves often do, and generally do, leave the linkage to the self and generalize out because I am a metaphysical actor who's talking in approximate metaphysical objects or words, sentences, and concepts, and linking back to taxonomies that are supposed to be generalizable. So let me go back to the chat and let's see if anybody else has any comments about this topic in the chat. Oh, there's a lot of stuff here. Okay. What's Kim's type? Kim is my dual, the ISFJ, or ISFP in socionics, also called SEI in socionics. I do become almost dependent, especially if the person has FE higher functional stack. Ned Flanders says, I think Kim is ISFJ, and Ned Flanders, you are correct. Okay, so continuing on this exciting topic of sexual jealousy and cognitive function, I want to sort of recap back to the beginning of this cycle of ideas for people who are more recently joining into the live stream. Basically, the concept that I was introduced to recently is that there are two types of sexual jealousy, one being jealous about emotional connectivity, one being jealous about physical connectivity, and I personally have experienced the latter of the two, and I've been trying to deconstruct what it's all about. So naturally, I linked, as I tend to cognitive functions, and noted that my own eighth or insecurity function is SE, which correlates with an insecurity about the physical aspect of things. And the other alternative would be, I'm hypothesizing here, just a hypothesis at the moment, that INTPs with FI in the 8th slot would be more likely to be insecure about the emotional connectivity. Now, Kestrel indicated that when he was younger, he had the following kind of SI insecurity, that he'd be worried that when things were getting hot and heavy, like some snot would come out of his nose and he'd fart or something like that. That sounds like a form of SI insecurity. So that's basically the topic here. And also another additional matter topic of sorts is the lack of utility of sexual jealousy, and if it's not warranted, in other words, if your partner's not actually cheating on you or being shady or whatever, then it's a wholly destructive force, and something that is worthwhile to try to get a handle on and try not to indulge in. So I'd point out one thing that was read to me, I think is worth repeating and pointing out, is that to the extent that you keep bringing up your partner's past partners, then you're compelling your partner to think about those people. That she's almost for certain not thinking about them unless you're bringing them up. She's probably thinking about you, right? So when Kim and I are coexisting in peace and everything's going nicely, she's thinking about me, probably. She's probably thinking to herself, gosh, I sure do like Eric. He's a nice guy. And then when I say, well, let's talk about Kevin, then all of a sudden she's thinking about Kevin. So that it's very counterproductive. If I want her to not be thinking about her past partners and thinking about me, I should probably stop bringing up her past partners. Sensible enough course of action, right? The other thing to remember about the whole sexual jealousy thing is whether it's emotional or physical, the past partners have nothing to do with you. They have nothing to do with you at all, except they do have something to do with her or him if you're a girl, or if you're gay or whatever. So they have something to do with who that person is. If you really love that person as who they are right now, then you love them because they are who they are because of what they've experienced in life. So those past partners aren't. Oh, fuck you, Castrol. Is that what Kevin looked like? No. They should have made Kevin like a stud. He was an ESTP. Kevin was an ESTP. That's why I don't like him. I mean, I've never met him. I don't. How can I not like him? How is it possible for me to not like somebody that Kim dated like 12 years ago or something? 15 years ago. 15 years ago, she was living with and in a long-term relationship with Kevin, an ESTP.
Kevin must be some kind of archetype for you.
Yeah, well, he represents ESTPs in my mind because she's described like how he was and stuff. And I've determined he was an ESTP.
Yeah, he's typed all of my previous relationships.
I've typed her previous man.
That's strange.
I have typed her previous relationship, man.
And their mothers.
This is
and their
bordering
children.
on. It's bordering on a sort of cook kind of.
It's crazy, okay, everybody. I want to make this clear. This is what you should not do. You should not do this. You should not type your partner's previous relationships. You should not ask her
the
questions
expression of
about
one is the
them.
exclusion of another.
So, the thing is, the reason we're having this conversation now is I really feel as though I'm starting to kind of get a handle on this shit. I recognize it now more clearly for what it is. Although I'm still totally susceptible to the feeling, I'm hopeful that this video that I'm making right now will further contribute to me being unable to indulge in it going forward. See, if I make a big talk about how stupid it is to indulge in it and give Kim all of these arguments to use against me when I try to indulge in it in the future, well, then I'm likely to get shut down quicker. And, I'll have to be accountable for my own words. I didn't think this strategy through before I started making this video, just started making it. But this is how shit works out for me in general. This is what it means to like manage the slabs, When I think about it now, I'm making this video and it's doing exactly what I just said. It's setting me up to fail at sexual jealousy. Setting myself up to fail at it. So that when I start in on Kim again, she's going to say, oh, you decided to instruct me to think about this previous lover. Let me picture in my head our sexual experiences. Ooh, that was good. Then I'll be like, okay. My bad. Why did I do that? Why did I set myself up to fail at this? Oh, yeah, because sexual jealousy is stupid and I shouldn't be indulging in it. So, like I said, that wasn't a strategy or something going in making this video, but that's how shit plays out. And I guess that's why I make this video. But I didn't. Is that a defense mechanism? Is that an unconscious defense mechanism, Kevin? ESTP Kevin? I don't know.
Well, it sounds like you have got a broad paradigm for what works for you, and like you said before, and it just it's got repercussions in the future that are going to benefit you, of course, because you've found it to be useful in the past.
Yeah.
That's where I have difficulty with, is the fact that you have only experienced this with me. That's where I internalize it.
Well, I mean, like, as I've explained before, our compatibility issues are unique to us. It's true. But I was never free before. I was doing what was familiar and comfortable in my wheelhouse, Well, what Kimberly said was since she has sexual insecurity about this relationship, is that I've not experienced compatibility difficulties like this before, really. But first note that I have a very lightly dotted piece of paper representing my past. I haven't slept with very many people. The last relationship I was in for 14 years with an FE Dom who tailored herself very precisely to what I was doing in my tastes, and was very responsive to exactly how I wanted shit to go. It was selfish of me to indulge in that all the time, like I didn't really care about her needs at all. And as a consequence, it was familiar, it was comfortable, it worked. But the thing is, what it wasn't was real, in the sense that I wasn't really caring about her. It didn't evolve at all, and I wasn't free to try things either. We didn't talk about it ever. We never talked about sex, my ex-wife and I. Never at all. And
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, the object to the outcome of you dealing with this issue is to stop it, yeah?
Well, there's two separate issues there. The issue of jealousy, yes, stop it.
What's the other issue?
Is compatibility. Like Kim and I do have legitimate compatibility weirdnesses, which is to say, it's like we're almost super compatible, but then there'll be like some aspect of things that's like backwards. It's weird. I don't want to go into a whole bunch of detail about it. But I mean, despite this compatibility weirdness, we do have a lot of sex. I mean, we probably have sex more than most couples, and certainly probably more than most 46-year-old couples. So I mean, I don't know what to say about it. That issue's more complicated.
I can't help you with that part, but so it's you want that to stop. Okay, so let's say that next time you get triggered with the jealousy, okay, what happens if you just don't do anything about it? Don't nag her about it.
It goes away.
What happens?
It goes away. I get distracted by something else. And Kim is actually, I know when she's doing it, although she probably doesn't think I know when she's doing it, but first of all, she's pretty good at guessing when I'm thinking about something that's troubling me. She's not necessarily good at guessing correctly when it's sexual jealousy, but since she's good at noting when something's troubling me, she's also good at noting that if it is sexual jealousy, then she's able to spot that as well. Like once she asks me a question about it, then it becomes clear that it is about that or it's not about that. But then I note that she makes an effort to introduce various subjects to get me off that topic, and generally attempting to to forget about it. And when I do nothing about it, when I don't pursue talking to her about the issue, then in fact it does go away, and I start thinking about something else. I mean, I can only focus on one thing inside my head for very long before I either talk about it or I just start thinking about something else. So yeah.
I mean, jealousy strikes me as a feeling rather than a thought, especially with these people that you've never met, etc. And that aren't likely to come back on the scene. So it's got to be an FI thing.
It strikes you as a what now?
Jealousy is more of a feeling than it is a rational, TI or TE based sort of thought.
So I'm sure you're right, but I can only understand it or talk about it or think about it as the things that I'm thinking that are the manifestations of those feelings, quote unquote. I get that it's a feeling, but that's what I just don't get. Is like I don't know what to do with that thing. That thing is impossible to deal with. What I can deal with are the narratives. I can deal with the language that I'm using about myself and about these previous people. That is how I express the jealousy. I can disempower those sets of words, and then presumably, if there's some other engine to the thing that's called a feeling, then that will go away or it will change because I've changed the stories. So if I change the story to focus more on the fact that all these other people have attempted to get Kim, not all of them ended up wanting to be in a relationship with her, but some of them did, and regardless, they all tried in some fashion to make it work with Kim, and they all failed until me. Because I'm actually going to be with her for the rest of my life. There's no way this is going to be ending in like 3 years or something like that, or 5 years or 10 years or whatever. Kim and I are not going anywhere. We're together forever. I'm 99% sure that she's just as 100% sure as me. So I'm as sure as I can be without being the other person. So as a consequence, there's absolutely no reason for me to feel sexual jealousy, and if I focus on those narratives, I should feel proud of myself. Nobody else was worthy. So I have to work the narratives for me to deal with this. It is true also, though, that as you pointed out there, and it is a good solution, that I can ignore the narratives and I'll get distracted by other topics, and that's a better choice than starting in on Kim about like, well, give me details about me. Okay, let's check the live chat, and I may be bringing this one to a close here pretty soon. Let's see if anybody's said anything. Okay, yeah. So I think I'm going to draw this live stream to a close. I'll probably put
wait a second. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. What is your sort of projected, expected time frame for which to deal with this problem?
Okay. Well, I mean, I expect to deal with it right now. I expect it to be
and to not have any more.
Hold on, I object.
Hey, Kato's here.
I know it's loud, so I just want to fuck it up somehow.
Okay, Kato, listen. I want you to chime in on the sexual jealousy issue. You're a gentleman who knows his way around a woman's vagina. So let's hear you explain to me your thoughts on sexual jealousy.
On sexual jealousy? Yeah. And like, do I have to make this about cognitive functions as well?
No,
or
you do not have to make it about cognitive functions. Just make it about sexual jealousy.
Sexual jealousy. I don't know. I'm a pretty... weird individual. So I don't know. I think the difference between me and most my female counterparts is like, for me, it's not really the actual physical cheating or like sex. It's like more of the weird creative conceptual attachment. I don't know if that makes sense. So it's like if a girl has sex, I don't even want to know if that makes sense. It's like I don't want to know. That's fine. It's like I just don't want to actually conceptualize you liking someone else more than me. It's not really about the actual sex. It's like, because sex to me is not really the most intimate thing. It's just a weird, kinky, weird thing that I do because I just think it's fun. You know what I mean? I'm kind of childlike with it. So it's like playing. I don't know. It's just like my playtime. So it's like if I see you always wanting to play with someone else and there's like a buildup, you know what I mean? That gets me pissed off more than actual sex. Because to me, sex could be like, oh, okay, you went to a bar, got drunk, and I had sex with someone. I'm not going to be, of course, I'm going to be somewhat insecure, but it's not the same as like me seeing over time, you developing a relationship and a fun, weird, quirky thing that we have. That makes sense.
This is dating. This stuff is dating sex.
Okay.
Where you don't even ask about the past, you don't know, you keep it, it's not even part of the discussion.
So you think this is the typical attitude for dating sex?
Yes.
Okay. So you expect your partners, you expect your partners to be sometimes out having sex with other people.
Me?
Yeah.
No. Depends. I mean, not in the beginning. If it's in the beginning, we don't know each other. I mean, I just
you don't talk about
I don't know you.
Think about it.
Yeah, don't say it. But I mean, once we're an official thing, then yeah, I don't want you to have sex with me.
Yeah, no.
But I mean, are you in it? But you're not in a monogamous relationship with this person, right? Or are you?
Oh, if I was, all right, if I'm in.
No, but I'm saying in this scenario, you're not in a monogamous relationship with her,
right.
But you still don't want her to have sex with other people.
Oh, at that point.
He wouldn't, but.
I'm asking him.
Yeah, I know.
Just shush.
No, I'm relating to him.
So what are you saying, Kato? He's saying like if you're dating someone and you have sex with her, let's say a couple of times, then you might still be out playing the field, but you would hope that she'd be basically not playing the field.
No. All right, well, here's my thing. There's the rational me, and then there's like the childlike me, and that's kind of always at odds. So the childlike me is gonna, I get super, what's it called? Attached fast. So like, and I have no control over either. So if it's like I like this person and I have sex with them once, maybe I'll get super attached to them right away. And there's like some girls, I might have a like intimate relationship or do it like 10 times, and I'll feel nothing. If I do feel attached to you, that's my childhood. Like, I don't even understand. Maybe that's NE.
Probably SI person.
But then or SI.
It's probably an SI person you're having sex with.
Yeah, probably. Someone like really warm and gentle and all that. And then, then there's like the TI aspect that I always go from a TI aspect. I'm like, well, I can't do that because if the table was flipped on me, and we're not in a relationship and the person was getting super jealous at me, I know I'd get pissed off. I know it'd be really draining for them to be constantly judging me and saying, we're not in a relationship, but I don't want you to have sex with anybody else, but I am. So I can't ever do that. So my rationality always overrides a childhood like attachment that's very real. But I always outthink it.
So you prefer to allow multiplicity rather than be unfair. You sort of deal with the reality that she's not being monogamous either, and that's just how it's gonna have to be.
Even if subjectively I feel like shit because of it, I still want to be fair, so I'll let it go because I'm trying to be as objective as possible. as fair as possible.
Interesting. So,
Yeah.
how long? You probably haven't been in a lot of long-term relationships, I'm guessing, right?
Like probably 3 serious ones, I guess.
How long is
I've
a
never
long-
had a relationship. I've never
How
been in a
long-
relationship longer than like a year and a half.
A year and a half. Okay.
So not super long.
That's pretty long. A year and a half is a pretty long relationship. Were you faithful during the course of that relationship?
No, the first one. No, I fucked that up. That was like my dual relationship too. I probably shouldn't have fucked it up because I'd probably be super happy right now. But I was like 18.
Well, yeah, people at that
Like,
age,
I lost
we all
my virginity.
fuck up. We all fuck up at 18. It's
Yeah.
ENTPs. There's zero chance of us not fucking up through our adolescence because we're trial and error and we have underdeveloped frontal lobes.
Yeah. It was like dual relationship too. She understood all my quirks and jokes, and I just was like, well, let me just NE the shit out of this. Let me just think about every other girl that I could possibly deal with and ignore.
It's like Kato lost
Keep
connection.
you in your little box that I like. Just stay in your box of pleasing me and loving me, but I'm gonna go explore. Obviously, the TI wasn't and the FE wasn't there.
The FI wasn't there.
In that,
the FI wasn't there, and it's still not there in your analysis of it because you attributed to things other than the FI. The FI wasn't there. You didn't value her as being precious sufficiently.
That's what I did. All through that concept.
I do now.
Right.
Way afterwards.
Well, I'm glad I'm not dating. It doesn't sound like to me like Kim really enjoyed it very much. I'm sure it had its ups and downs, but poor choice of term. Yeah, poor choice of term there. But by and large, I think she found it inconsistent with her nature to have to maintain that kind of distance. Yeah. So,
me too.
Anyway, okay, I'm going to end this live stream now. So thank you all for watching. This has been an interesting live stream about sexual jealousy and sexual insecurity, and it originates with me dealing with my own sexual jealousy and insecurity that is unwarranted entirely because Kimberly is not doing anything at all. It's like bad or anything. So if you're feeling that way, you're not alone, and try to take a attitude I think like I'm trying to take about it, which is it's my problem that I need to fix. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to eat plenty of cheese while being extremely sexually jealous. Who is this person who's coming in right now? Let's find out.
Be jealous. Be jealous.
Face McGee.
Oh, it's Katie.
Okay. Talk to you later, everybody.